why is the Lightning Network the right solution for the rewards industry? What makes it, superior to some of the other solutions you mentioned?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things, and this will get us also into one of the other topics I know you wanted to cover. For one, you have this sort of like instant redemption ability, which is very, very unique. And granted, some businesses are going to be a little bit hesitant to that idea. Traditionally, a lot of brands are going to want to keep that value in their four walls. That is to say, hey, if I accrue X number of points with a particular merchant, that merchant wants those points to go back to them naturally, right? And so there is this little bit of tension in this idea of a more open loyalty paradigm. But ultimately, and you already see these early steps being taken by the likes of Starbucks, like I think it's only a matter of time. Ultimately, if history proves relevant in the loyalty industry, it is always just what does the consumer want? And that is the way that the world goes. And so I think you're going to slowly but surely see a more open kind of picture for this. But number one would be this idea of like instant redemption, my ability to make a purchase, to get my Bitcoin, and to be able to immediately withdraw that, and even withdraw it if it's a tiny amount. That is very unique. And, you usually have in traditional loyalty either like point minimums that you need to accrue before being able to redeem or spend them. So it gives going back to what I said earlier, right? This like core pain point of just flexibility. It gives consumers right off the bat a lot more flexibility with how they redeem their reward. Number one. Number two, and this gets a little more meta, a little further out, but it's one that we're really, really excited about, particularly as it relates to Taproot Assets. And so think about, for the same reasons that we espouse the merits of the Lightning Network as a superior payments network, right? This open, interoperable network that's going to ultimately outcompete closed networks. I think the same thing is true in the loyalty context. So I'll give you an example. Like think about how today you have some partnerships, particularly in the travel and travel and entertainment industry. Think of like maybe a partnership between an airline and a hotel chain. So maybe you can accrue some airline miles and redeem some of those miles for a discounted hotel stay, as an example. And so what's happening there is those entities have formed a partnership. And then what's happening behind the scenes are these two, both very archaic loyalty systems are sort of attempting to talk to each other and enable you, the consumer, to exchange that one form of value to another. And what happens, because these systems are so, archaic and sort of kludged together, very kind of Frankenstein-esque, value gets leaked out of that. It's an inefficient transaction. You, the consumer, don't realize it, but what's happening is that there's a cost of doing that conversion, and not everyone's going to like add up and say, oh, did I get dollar for dollar what I had here? The answer is no. And so this is a very inefficient way to translate one form of value to another. So you could probably see where I'm heading with this. In the same way as you see the Lightning Network being, for example, used for remittances, I want to send value back to a family member in country, X. And so you're seeing Lightning Network rails being used to sort of interoperate value transfer between fiat currencies. In that same way, you could see Lightning Network rails interoperate value transfer between different units of loyalty value. So think of, an airline tokenizing their points as a fungible Taproot asset riding on Lightning rails. Same thing with that hotel, same thing with the retailer, same thing with, all of this. And so you have all these different loyalty points riding on Lightning rails that are denominated in sats that can be exchanged and redeemed immediately in sats, and that can also be exchanged between each other. That opens up so much more flexibility for the consumer. It eliminates a lot of these kind of friction points that we see today. And it really sets the stage for this truly open loyalty economy on a Bitcoin standard, if you will. There's a couple $100 billion of loyalty value sloshing about globally. This is the value of all the points, all the miles, all the, this and that. And so, how do we get a significant portion of that onto the Bitcoin standard? I think this is, one of the ways. You might ask, well, okay, that's pretty clear on the consumer side. what's in it for the merchant. And I think there's a massive like discoverability element. Again, this is going to be scary for merchants. They're going to say, I am used to keeping my four-walled garden, pristine and locked out from anyone else. But again, times are changing. Consumer preferences are changing. We see this in even some of the good research that companies like Bakkt have done about, younger generations, their preferences around loyalty and different, alternative types of loyalty rewards. So I think it's only a matter of time. And ultimately, once brands opt into this, they're going to benefit from this huge discoverability aspect. Like, being able to access a much more global audience with the form of loyalty that we have to offer. And so, not every brand's going to like that, but those that can, that are competitive, I think will benefit immensely. So that's that's maybe the further out kind of vision for where I think this whole arc of loyalty and Bitcoin goes, over the more kind of medium to longer term.